and I have some correspondence from the Ghana Revenue Authority on this matter as well, so they're going to officially respond to it. But we would move on to the domestic debt exchange program. Yes. No, I just integrated that into the time that, because we have to move on.
Yes.
It's important. Yes.
Should I proceed? Now,
Let
let me make the point that even if somebody somehow acquired 2 tin numbers and it's merged, it doesn't make it 2. It's still a single tin number.
What
No,
are you saying?
I'm saying
Are we saying
that
the same
you cannot acquire 2 tin separate numbers. The law forbids it, and that's the provision that has been read. So, if you argue that somebody has 2 and is being encouraged to be merged, it doesn't make it 2.
Okay.
If somebody acquires 2 separate tin numbers, that is a crime. That's what the law says.
Okay.
And then two. At the time that this National Cathedral loan thing was given,
After the phone
Konoforiata
call.
clearly has indicated that at that time they had advanced payment to National Cathedral. So under what circumstances were they looking for loan from somewhere? Clearly the dates have been given. At that time, that August, they've been giving money. So there was no need for any money to be sought from outside.
In fact, that document you make reference to, we have a copy of it, the timelines
Yes.
of when payments were made. And if you look at the document that was
7th June
provided by
2019, they made
the
payment.
finance minister to this 8-member committee that was established to look into the censure motion, the first payment that was made to the cathedral was 7th June 2019. The second was 5th March 2021, all to the consultant for the design of the cathedral. So payment of consultancy services in respect of design of the cathedral. Those were the first 2 payments of 445,000 cedis. That's about $89,000. The second payment was a little over 13.9 million dollars.
5th March.
And then that was on the 5th of March. Then 10th February 2021, another
5.5.
payment of consultancy service to the design. So the first 3 payments on the cathedral were all on the design of the cathedral to the architect. Then 29th October 2021, Government of Ghana contribution to the National Cathedral Secretariat to enable commencement of planned activities. So the Secretariat received their first money, about 142,762,500 Ghana cedis. That's about $25 million equivalent at the time. Then on the 19th of August 2021, there was additional Government of Ghana contribution. Well, that's our money to the Secretariat for construction of the National Cathedral, some $10 million at the time. That's equivalent to about 58.2 million Ghana cedis. Then 31st March 2022, $3.5 million, equivalent to 25 million Ghana cedis, was paid.
So the point is that in that August that they were looking for this 2.6 million, they had received $10 million.
You're not the financial manager of the cathedral. It's we are managing how they.
Guess what? These are issues that certainly are playing out, and because I need to move to the debt.
Yeah, just the one sentence because it wasn't time.
The interest that, of course, you have.
Don't worry, maybe not the
well.
ones who talk about
so,
it. So you don't worry.
This week, the finance ministry.
Let's make it small.
Just to open
put out
that
a statement on the decision to extend the deadline for the domestic debt exchange program. In fact, that statement we have a copy of as well as we go on. We'll put it on the screen. But eventually, that the decision was taken because the finance ministry says they want to engage with the stakeholders who have raised concerns about the inclusion in the domestic debt exchange program. Paramount being these individual bondholders. Martin Pebo, who is with us in studio, is leading one of 3 groups of individual bondholders who have raised concerns about the inclusion in the domestic debt exchange program, contrary to what had been communicated earlier. The finance minister met them this week, and after which my colleague Abdul Sani Rahman engaged him on what exactly they expect of these individual bondholders after the consultation. Take a look.
I think January 31st is certainly what you may call a drop-dead date. I think we would have given everybody enough time to participate or give us their comments or interest, and we'll do it. But I'm confident that we'll get there. I think we are making good progress with the financial institutions and with other individuals that are concerned. So thanks. This has been a very good meeting. We look forward to what will come afterwards. But let the country be calm about it. It's voluntary, so let nobody rush into thinking anything else, and we will be able to come to a consensus which would ensure that enough have tended to make the program successful. We don't. That's why there's a technical committee. They are much smarter than I am, so we'll see.
So that's the finance minister there. People, so prior to this meeting, you had also called on the Gamanche, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct. Yes.
What came up in that said engagement with him? What exactly are you expecting of him, the Gamanche, to have done in this instance?
Yeah, so we were beseeching the Gamanche to step in. Number one, wanted to inform him that, well, we are on his land, and such a big matter, creating national security crisis, is happening. So at least formally, we wanted to inform him and to ask that as head custodian of the land, he should step in, inform government that the situation is untenable. You say, because the Gamanche wields some influence. Yes, he leads people. He's the overlord of the Ga state. And if you go back into history, the roles that chiefs have played, in getting independence up to date. So chiefs have done quite well, sometimes in trying to advocate for the voiceless, advocate for the masses. So that is how come we went to inform him so that he would put in a word. And when he began to speak, you could see that, yes, he had been watching and he knew what was happening. He empathized with us. He couldn't fathom why somebody would give his hard-earned income to the government, and when the day of payment came, government would now be running around, dodging and giving all manner of excuses, especially when government had been warned. Hey, government had been warned. This reckless borrowing, it will cause trouble. It will cause trouble. Kweku Frimpong, the assembly. Kweku Frimpong, the assembly. Say, oh no, go, you naysayers. No, we are okay. Nothing will happen. You say, yes. So having said all that, when we made a story to him, presented a case to him, and as I said, he couldn't imagine why he would be subjected to such penury, such poverty. He promised to look at it and to talk to the government on our behalf. So it was quite a a good visit. A good visit. And also it helped in the advocacy, because at least the optics showed that here is a chief who, in times like this, in times when some chiefs are pandering to the government and will not hold government to account, but rather want to be seen supporting all the bad deeds of government, here is a chief who could publicly state that he wonders why government would take money away from a woman with 5 children, a woman who needs that money to feed his children, and say government is going to build roads, the capital expenditure, and the other things in the budget. So in summation, that's the visit to the government.
I see.
Yes.
Now, I want us to take a listen to one of many pensioners who have invested in government bonds. There's that group as well, and then also the bondholders forum led by Senior Jose and the individual bondholders. So you have all 3 groups are together now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 2. Formerly the 2. We and Senior are 1. And Ananientry is still alone. The 60 plus, the pensioners.
The pensioners. Mm-hmm. Okay, take a listen to one of them. We spoke to him earlier in the week.
crying, but I saw tears flowing down my cheeks. How will I survive? How are we going to survive? Because the coupon itself is even inadequate. They all know what is going on. She went to school and only yesterday she spoke to us. She's not feeling fine. Why do you think she isn't feeling fine? Because of course everything she needed, she wouldn't have gotten everything to school. One. And she knew that mommy is not in her right mind.
So that is, this is the lady you were referring to, the lady with the 5
Kids, yeah.
children,
5
who is
children.
unemployed now.
Yes.
And
depends on
she
the
used her
coupons
severance package to
buy.
invest in the government bonds.
That's correct.
And now she's having
use
to
the
deal with
dividends.
this. And the dividends is what she was using
maintain.
to pay school
Yes.
fees and
Yes.
take care of the children and all.
Yes.
So this is the pensioner as well that who also belongs to this Dr. Anani's group as well. We spoke to him earlier in the week. Take a look.
Engineer, so I travel with the ships, we go all around the world. But this what happens that any place we go or any port we arrive at, I normally go to the town to send the money to the family. So I was advised to use the banks. So I put some money in the bank so that I can authorize them to give the money to my family so that I don't be going. So I started somewhere that was 1990, around there, with the banks putting some money with the treasury bill. So when I came down, I said, okay. Then I started with the data bank open, so they call it FPAC. So I invested into the FPAC, the data bank. 2008, there is like a Ponzi scheme. The money went down and the money collapsed. So I confronted this one. Then also Obami, but then I confronted them. It became like an argument where we thought that that's why I withdrew my money. The little that they will give me, I withdrew. So I left some small money with them, but then because I cannot take all the money, so I left it with them. So all of a sudden also, then I started with the Ghana Commercial Bank at the High Street branch. The one with that started with them, investing with the treasury bill. Then that also was going a little bit okay. I don't have any problem. It was going. So it came to a time, and I said, okay, let me. My cousin came to me, so he has got a water bill, food. I have to my transportation out because now I cannot go. I have to go with the car. This is my stake, and I have to hold somebody. Then before I can go to the place, but when I sit down, you think this man. No, I'm not well, and I have to buy fuel. I have to hire a car. Where is the money? So if we invest now, we put the money in the house. If God permits, I take the money. The only thing I have to do is to keep it in the house. If I chop it, finish. It's my money. So I'm begging the government, please help us, especially if there's anything you can do to the aged ones, the old ones, which our time is due. Tomorrow or any time we can leave. We will beg the government.
Well, so that's a 77-year-old pensioner as well who was invested in government bonds. I mean, after all of this, the impact that this will have on the financial sector itself is another matter that all stakeholders in there will have to deal with. Now that the tendency for people now to keep their monies and not to take it to a financial institution to also do business on their behalf is a major one. But you see, Mr. Kwebo, you have been meeting the finance minister this week.
Yes.
What was the outcome of the said meeting that you had with him between then and now what has been taking place?
Yeah, so the meeting was a breakthrough in the advocacy. There was a big breakthrough. That is, one, the finance minister agreed. He bought our argument that there's something to be said for the argument that government cannot undertake developmental projects at the expense of the livelihood of citizens, as enshrined in Article 36 Clause 1 of the Constitution. Because 36 Clause 1 says that government should develop, but in developing, be careful that you protect livelihoods. It's clear. Be careful that,
principles.
yes, you protect livelihoods, and they're said to be justiciable. The Supreme Court says so, right? So he bought the argument. So based upon that, then he said, okay, you know what, gentlemen, even at a point, he just had to say, look, let's stop the argument, let's stop making the arguments, let's just form a committee, go and continue. So they continue there. What he said is that expand, show specifics of the projects that as citizens or as bondholders you think government should not embark upon. And I think it's good because that's participatory democracy. Show us what you specifically think should not be undertaken. And you know, at the
That's
end,
one of the mandates of this joint committee.
yes,
To
so
identify
those projects that we think we should suspend. They are all important, yes. Development, we all want to develop. We all wish we could even develop at 30% a year, but that's idealistic. It doesn't happen, right, because of resource constraints. So we all want to develop, but as you've seen Roberta say, as you've seen the 77-year-old say, the coupons are salaries. So these bondholders, let's call it also salaries. So if you finish paying government workers, then pay bondholders too, because theirs is also salaries. You pay public sector workers, their salaries. Pay bondholders, their salaries too. That's what the coupons are. Before you go to development. So just briefly, Alfred, you see it here. It says 36(1). The state shall take all necessary action to ensure that the national economy is managed in such a manner as to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure the maximum welfare, freedom, and happiness of every person in Ghana, and to provide adequate means of livelihood. You see, suitable employment, blah, blah, blah. So you see the livelihood. So when you are developing in such a manner that will truncate people's livelihood, in such a manner that will collapse people's businesses, in such a manner that will cause death, no. It means that you have to pause and then redirect. So he said, look, gentlemen, I'm forming a committee. Come there, show your specifics so that we will see. Because once individuals are taken out of the program, right, there will be a loophole, or let's say there will be a gap. How do we fill it? And filling the gap is what we are saying, that then cut down on some expenditure. So that's the exercise we are undertaking. So, and to be very clear, Alfred, at the meeting there, I'm not going into the details of what's going on there, but just to, sometimes people ask questions. We are not negotiating anything about, oh, this year pay this percentage, or we want 20%, 30. No. We are not doing figures there. The only exercise we are undertaking is telling government that, this line item, we think this should be cut down. You know, the mantra, the main one that resonated was that cut capital expenditure, because that was easy. But now in going to the exercise, we are looking at everything, the state-owned enterprise, everything. Anything that will help to make government more efficient, you see, because governance is about using the public resources efficiently, right? That's the whole thing. Cut this, cut that, and then...
I see. So for you, the individual bondholders, regardless of this joint committee, what you're asking for is still the same. Take us out of the domestic debt exchange program.
Absolutely.
This joint committee is not meant to negotiate any arrangement between you and government.
No. So yes, it's not about percentages and pay, shift the dates. No. The finance minister says, go to the committee, go and expand your idea that cut this, cut that. Because obviously, we couldn't have done that in the meeting with him. Because everyone went for the first meeting, it was 6 hours. No, that's why he's at the top. The directors are there for that purpose.
Interesting. So then that's just for the purpose of clarity, because in the posture was that, and then if you listen to the finance minister, that Well, now, for instance, for the pensioners, there could be some consideration.
So to take them
So
out.
the understanding was that you are in this joint committee that has been set up after your meeting with the finance minister, so as to agree on, for instance, not taking you out completely, but also some arrangements on improving or modifying the earlier announcement of, for instance, zero coupon for this year, and then next year we make payments, which the finance minister has said that that zero coupon this year
It's now
off the table.
Yes.
Now they're going to review that position. Is that not some admission or the processes that is going to be review of what was earlier announced, as against what you're saying now that you don't want to be part of the program? So at what point then does this announcement that the finance minister made of the zero coupons being off the table apply?
Good. Yes, so that's a good question. He made that change, okay? He announced that change in policy before we went into the meeting. You say, yes, that statement came out. This is a pre-recorded interview. Even though the whole interview was aired on Thursday evening on the PM Express. But we met him on Wednesday afternoon, later around 4 p.m. And this news about shifting away from the zero coupon this year came, at least I heard it, Joy News, around 12. So at the time we're in the meeting, we already knew that he had made some concessions. Yes, he's managing the process. I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's fair to say that it was a way of managing it before coming to our meeting, so that you could see that we couldn't then have said, oh, it was at the meeting or after the meeting that government shifted. So he already put out his position that government is already shifting. That's moving towards us, and that's a way of managing. As I said, maybe Dennis will allow that part because he could get some capital out of that. But listen, the point is
which
that
capital are you looking for?
no, I mean his side, because you see that he shifted position before the meeting, so that it wouldn't be that, oh, it was when he met bondholders that he no. So that news was played. That news was brought up before we met, and I'm saying that at the meeting, when we started making the arguments about cut, he said, okay, look, listen. So because that's all we're saying, repeating ourselves over and over. So he said, look, okay, just go to the committee and go and expand on it, and then the committee will bring the report and we move forward. So that is it.
But you see, and I'll move to Lawyer Dafiamekwe in a bit, but because you are in this committee that has been established to look at areas of government expenditure that has to be cut so that individual bondholders will be excluded, government plans to raise a little over 144 billion in revenue this year.
Yes.
It's estimated to spend over 200, in excess of 220 billion.
Yeah,
about 60 billion,
227.
60 billion deficit. Which aspect or how much of government revenue has to be cut to actually enable us reduce the domestic, in fact, our public debt by 137 billion, which is how much we have to reduce our debt by to be sustainable, for us to even get the attention of the board of the IMF for this program? How much exactly? Or do we now have to get to the point that the likes of Professor Godfrey Bobkin, a friend of mine, have made a statement that individuals or investors will have to come to terms with the fact that you have to take a hit. You have to take part of this burden going into this program.
Okay. Is it me or Honorable? Yes. Okay. Yeah, so how much do we have to cut? Yes, so there are a number of areas government is looking at. So you remember the first one was organized labor, and this after the pension funds. But organized labor led the charges and wriggled out the pension funds. That's helped to take out the pension funds, then individual bondholders. Then there's the matter of the banks. So to be very clear, is the banks that are likely to shoulder quite a chunk of it. But you know that the banks are also, fighting back, that they need better terms. But normally it's the banks that would have to, because, they have made all the profits. They have made all the profits. So it's time, to whom much is given, much is expected. They have made all the profits over the years. So it would appear that they are the ones that would be shouldering a chunk of the burden. But it's also clear that government needs to cut back. That's how come we came from the perspective of government cutting back on the expenditure. And government sees that, yes, actually, that's the way to go. Though the budget has been passed, it's authorization to spend. It doesn't, if there's no money to spend, you can't spend. The budget is authorization to spend X amount. Yeah. So, but go and raise the revenue. Mm-hmm. So if you see you can't raise revenue to spend, obviously you can't spend. You see. So government is seeing it, and as I said, so now that we're over 200,000, we are representing over 200,000 bondholders. You see that at the table, when we speak on their behalf, there will be evidence to show that, okay, this is what the representatives of the bondholders said. You see, and I'm sure very soon government may be engaging the MPs as well, because they are representatives. And the MPs will also most likely be saying the same thing, because that is something that especially the minority have been singing for years now. Cut, cut, cut. So I'm sure when it gets there, because it's in paragraph 278 of the budget, that government will engage all stakeholders. And I don't see how you engage all stakeholders without our MPs. So I think we are headed there. And natural fact, if you look, so may I read? It says, Mr. Speaker, the details of the debt operation program will be announced soon to the public and the investor community after the necessary engagement with all relevant stakeholders. So though the MPs hadn't been consulted up to date, now that we've advocated, I think it's very clear that there will be space for them. Yes, there will be space for them, so that, we build some consensus. And in actual fact, you see that one of the first public meetings we held was with the minority and majority in Parliament. So you see, Osei Chimen-Sabos, who made the statement, he empathized with us and said, hey, this program was going to wipe out the middle class. And so subsequently, you hear me say this program is what? A weapon of what? Mass destruction. Yes, that's it. So I think we are gradually going there.
Okay.
So, yes.
Well, another thing, Osei Chimen-Sabos is quoted to have made a statement that Parliament was not briefed on this domestic debt exchange program. Correct? You were not giving any detail until it was made public.
Yet, let me say that was the position until we had it in the budget. And even when it was stated in the budget, the further debates by the various committees, particularly when the Finance Committee got back with its report, it was indicated that only the external bondholders will be affected, that the domestic bondholders will not be affected. So it gave some comfort. Look, I tell you on authority, if it had been indicated clearly in the budget statement that domestic creditors will be affected, the budget wouldn't have gone through. It wouldn't have gone through.
The budget wouldn't have been
approved. It wouldn't have gone through. Would have rejected the budget. Because I say this because as soon as we pass the budget, we pass appropriation to spend. On the 23rd of December, daybreak 24th, 26th of December, then they issue the new directives. That domestic bondholders.
24th in the evening.
Rather 24th?
In the
no,
evening.
it was 26th.
It's actually the 24th.
24th in the evening.
Okay, so it even fortifies my point. As soon as we approved the budget on the 20th, in fact, daybreak, we left Parliament at 5 a.m. 24th. So it means the evening of 24th, then they issue and said that domestic bondholders will be affected.
The Christmas gift.
You understand? So the handling of this matter vis-a-vis Parliament was in itself very deceitful. Because you told us in the budget that you come out with the details, and that clearly the domestic bondholders, because Atu made the point that, look, if you include the domestic bondholders, we will not agree. So they responded and said, no, there's no way domestic bondholders will be affected. only for us to agree and support you and approve the budget. Then, bam, you hit everybody with it. So, look, what they want to do to the banks will be apocalyptic. The banks have taken our savings, and because they trade with money, and government was offering very good margins, they invested our monies in government bonds. So if the banks are affected, invariably it is the dividends of individuals that will be affected. The banks are going to downsize. They are going to lay people off. Look, the financial sector will be in crisis. We are talking of about 70 billion Ghana cedis. Total government revenue for 2022 is about 75 billion Ghana cedis. So we can say we speak of issues that potentially have financially apocalyptic proportions. No bank will be spared. As we speak, people who are holding bonds in the cocoa bill, cocoa bill, are saying on authority that the yields have matured. They've been, in fact, some said that they were credited with the dividend, which they have no agreement that there should be a rollover. The banks unilaterally have rolled over the investment. What it means is that I cannot even have my yield for you to plow back the principal. They are plowing back the principal as well as the yield. When others inquired into it, somebody called me yesterday that he wants to take a legal action. So I had to listen to him.
I'm glad you are right.
Oh yes.
This is why it comes. This is the bunch of bongo.
That's for you. And when I interrogated the matter, serious matters. The man says, my yield on the bill is about 22,000. So he was expecting that 22. Then he could decide whether to plow back or not, given the issues he want, or to take out its principal and do something else with it. Within hours, because he got alert and was preparing to go to the bank on Monday. Within hours, there's a debit alert. So he called the bank manager. The bank manager says the BOG has directed that they withhold the payment of dividends. So technically, the investments have all been plowed back. Government, as we speak, has not suspended school fees. Government has actually increased school fees by 15% at the tertiary level. Tertiary school fees have all gone up. Parents have invested in these bonds to be able to have some yield and pay their children's school fees. You are withholding the bonds and the dividends. You are increasing school fees. How do you expect people to pay school fees? Government has increased the electricity bill. 1st February, we are all going to be hit. Has increased water bill. All utilities have gone up, so to speak. And yet, the resources that people will want to rely on to be able to meet these demands on them by the state is saying unilaterally that I am not going to pay you these dividends. So if government can suspend payment of school fees by parents, if government can suspend the increment or payment of utilities, then I can support government that, okay, they restructure the debt. But if you are not restructuring debts, if you are not paying dividends on domestic debts, and yet you are increasing school fees, you are increasing utilities, everything has gone up. Inflation is 54.1%. It hasn't ever happened in the Fourth Republic. It hasn't ever happened.
You should pay me consultancy.
No, you just look at me. So Okansi, we will not support this government to take our investment. Look, it's under contract that when I every investment you do in the bank, you sign forms. Oh, you are aware? They give you some long forms, and they intentionally Look, the details are atrocious terms, but they will photocopy the form. They are so faint. Our people are not able to read and know the onerous terms these documents contain. And we sign. It's only when you have problems that you know that the investment comes with onerous terms, and yet we are able to bear. When they get to maturity, you say unilaterally, we'll allow the cost to determine. I am in full support that we should sue the government. We've been advising this government against borrowing. Last year we borrowed 76 million euros for some COVID-19 additional facility. Do you know the purpose? For training and acquisition of PPEs. I can bring you the report.
This was 2022.
Yes, 76 million euros. We borrowed to consume. We asked them, 76 million euros. It's not money that will put in your back pocket. But we went for it, and we said we're going to spend it on training and all those nebulous terms, not into any revenue yielding projects. We are building Agenda 111. I was hoping that money could have even been pushed into the first phase, so that the hospitals will be quickly completed and they will begin to serve the people. Those are revenue generating things. We won't do that. We'll borrow and want to buy PPEs. So this government has borrowed so much and spent so much on consumption. That is why we are where we are. Something we borrowed, we've not been able to move quickly with the projects for which we borrowed them. So the moratorium has run out. So the projects have not been started. We begin to pay interest on those facilities.
These facilities came before Parliament.
Yes.
Right? This 76 million euros
Yes.
for PPEs in training in
Yes.
2022.
Yes.
It came before Parliament.
Yes.
What did Parliament do about
We were
this?
against it, the minority, naturally. We were against it.
But they went through.
It's a game of numbers. Like the way we oppose
So what was
the
the
VAT
justification
rate.
for? Where was the justification for it? If the minority yes was against it, but what argument did the majority advance for this to be approved?
You see, they tell you that
This
the
is
COVID
money that
situation,
we are going to pay.
No, they say the COVID situation, even though it's now minimalized, it doesn't mean that we should still not be in readiness. They use all those high-sounding falutin words. You know, and it's as if you stampede it and truly, be robust, it's as if you don't want the health system to be properly. We don't want the health of the people to get better.
But you had concerns.
We have serious concerns. Ask any minority member. 76 million euros. It's 76 or 75, one of them. But I remember the figure. Look, I kept that report, and anytime I went on program, I felt very bad about that loan.
Yeah.
But he was approved. So my brother, what this government has done. Look, data bank is not working. You are aware.
Yes, we spoke.
You are aware.
With their
They are
managing
working
director.
remotely.
What is the meaning
Ask
of
Dennis,
working?
maybe
Hey!
knows he used to work there.
I mean,
MC,
that's not
I
material to the
have
fact.
never
Whilst-
in my life
Okay.
a data bank.
Okay, so that is with
I think
that is with
Which
I
of
think
the
it's
units?
I
good
won't
that
tell
you
you.
put
I
that.
have
But
never
I want to
family.
make.
No,
You see,
it is
I
not
want to
family.
make a point.
I have never worked in data.
I want to make a point.
None of the subsidiaries.
No.
I want
Okay.
to make a point.
Data
Thank you.
bank has
When
three, four
when John
subsidiaries. I've
Mahama
never
was
worked in any
in
of them.
government, when he was in power, he encouraged banks to grow. Banks like GN Bank, they even had a
why I
branch
told you not to be reading
in my
on Facebook.
constituency in South Dine in Germany. They were mopping up revenue from the people, tabletop owners.
Enterprise.
It's not a data bank.
Enterprise
Gentlemen,
is owned
hold
by
on, hold on.
Obrigada.
That's actually besides the
Dennis
point.
is heckling me.
Oh,
He's taking away.
Why you round up? Round up for me. Yes, I.
You know what I'm saying? Look, banks like GN Bank, they were dotted in every corner, mobilizing revenue from the most remotest rural areas for purposes of improved and innovative revenue mobilization for the financial sector. they were also offering employment for the youth. We claimed that they didn't have money to pay investors. So we collapsed it. We placed it under receivership. Today, data bank can't pay its investors. They are sitting at home. It's not been placed under receivership. We have not been fair to those bank owners.
Okay. Well, so, Dennis, this week, yes, the individual bondholders met the finance minister. I spent some time with Lawyer Matipebu because he was in that said meeting leading one of the three groups. He's giving details of what has transpired so far. They're still at the same position regardless of this joint committee. We don't want to be part of this program. What are the options?
Prophet, so let me say that I am very glad that a lot of the conversations is around, concerns about the citizens. And if you listen to Honorable Dafia Mekpo and Lawyer Martin concerns, I think those same concerns should be transferred to every citizen. And that is why in the earlier conversation, I was very worried about the way Honorable Kujuta Blakwa and Honorable Dafia Mekpo were dragging the Reverend Minister into the issues, because this morning it's an established fact that even the law you read was passed in 2016. The two forms that Honorable Ablakwa showed, I'm just showing consent to citizens, showed precedes the law, and that until the 2016 law, there were even no things, and citizens could actually have those multiple cards. In fact, that is why the GRA acknowledged in the rollout of this new law that preceding the new law, people had these, multiple things across, and then they should be consolidated. And that's why they created an avenue for these things to be put together. So if you do not bring the person's current thing, which is actually his Ghana card number, and then you go and bring a 2013 and 2016 forms, then you are deliberately trying to deceive the public and to run this person down unfairly. And I think this needs to stop. You should move the conversation to scratch and stop all these populist sensational conversations and the way he's trying to run on Reverend Kusi Boateng, down. After the scratch conversation, and it comes out that indeed there are some issues of corruption, established conflict of interest and all of that, then we can all run him down as much as possible and do what we can. But at the moment, he's misled us. It is not true. He doesn't have two tin numbers. The forms he showed are deceptive. They are old forms, 2010 and 2016, which means that they precede even the law that you sought to read and all of that. And then also, GRA acknowledges that in the transition to conform to the new law, citizens could have multiple things, and they've created an avenue for you to do the measure so that it comes into one. I think it's only fair that in as much as we want political capital, we set the record straight and put the facts out there. Now, also let me state that why are you
So he has provided evidence. He has not provided a single evidence to counter it. That is what the record.
Don't do what you're doing.
You just move
I don't
on
need to
what
put
we are
any
talking
records.
about.
The fact is that what he's put out is outdated. It's a misleading document and it has no value. That's what I am saying. You can say whatever you want to say, but stop interrupting me. The second point I want to make is that I have never ever worked at Data Bank. So Lawyer Martin should stop that. Secondly,
you said
Data Bank is actually in operation. Their offices are opened as we speak. They are running from their offices as we speak. At least these are public, information that we should all know. So it's unfair. I mean, we shouldn't try to, as much as possible, try to run the organization that because we feel that an individual that we do not like politically is associated with it. Let's deal with the issues and facts. If I'm a customer with Data Bank and I feel that my investments are safe or not safe, I'll withdraw, isn't it? And all of that. Now, to the issue of the debt exchange, I am of the view that these are issues that go directly to affect individuals and individuals' survival. And for which reason, at all times, government or the state has a responsibility to protect these individuals. After all, this government remains the government that has spent so much in providing social safety nets for the citizenry than any other government. And so I don't think this government will go out deliberately to try and create some form of economic discomfort for the citizenry. whatever the issues are, I have followed the conversation. I have read all the documents around the debt exchange. I've listened to the individual bondholders group. I think there is no way anybody can say that they do not have legitimate concerns and legitimate issues there. Absolutely none. And it would be almost insensitive for me or anybody in government to say that somebody's money, whether the money is being lost or not, is another conversation. But if I'm expecting to receive my money in June, and now I cannot receive it in June or I can receive it in December, I should be convinced why I should leave it for December. You know, and for me, I think that is why even this whole debt exchange thing, first of all, was made voluntary. It means that I am not under any compulsion to take it or not. But government has always made a point that for all of us to even continue to have that kind of economic environment, so that even you that have investment playing in the money market and all the investment market, you still have that environment to still do business. We definitely are in a very difficult economic situation right now. We definitely are in a situation where we need to recover. And the debt exchange program remains one of the strategies that we need to be able to get back on our feet and then move on from there. At this point, there are two people involved. There are those who genuinely have monies and an investment in these instruments, and for which reason are seriously affected and needs to be looked at, so that at least whatever structure we are giving them or government is giving them is one that they are comfortable with. Anybody that plays in the bond market usually are people who understand what they are about. They understand the risk, and then they understand the gains in there. It is a matter of explaining to them what the gains are if you do the debt restructure, and then what the losses are if you don't do the debt restructure, and then they take it. I think one of the concerns that people have is the fact that they probably do not have complete clarity as to this whole debt structure arrangement. And I'm glad that the finance ministry and at this point is trying to do some engagement. We should also acknowledge, and I'm sure Lawyer Martin will agree, that there were various blocks in this whole bond market thing. Dealing with the institutions were very easy. Because initially, yes, the institutions were some consultations were done. The pensions people, the insurance people, the banks, a lot of conversations and consultations. Remember, a committee was put together to even engage them. So some conversations were held. That was what led to some leaking of some of the meetings and all of that. But obviously, I am sure that the framers of the whole program couldn't have had a structure in mind at that time to deal with the individual bondholders, you know, because everybody, so many people and all of that. But now it's good. Now that they've come together, there's a group. I know it is not every bondholder that is part of the group, but you are speaking on their behalf and representing them. We couldn't have had this at the initial stage of the conversation, obviously. But for the institutional groups who have the investments with them. So I think that we've gotten to the point where the institutions have been dealt with. You remember pensions at some point were part. And then as part of the conversations, they probably made a strong point and the alternatives were professed, and then they were removed from it. I think another group were also removed from it and all of that. I think insurance also.
No, for the insurance,
but they are also making a point and all that. So in all of this, it's a matter of calibration, conversations. But whatever it is, there is no gain or point in anybody being entrenched in their position.